The institution of organized religion runs deep within communities where its members subscribe to this collective consciousness. It is ingrained so deeply within these communities that it influences government, politics, and societal structure. As one's consciousness evolves, features of faith contribute to this development by standardizing all successes and consequences into tangible planes of existence, such as heaven or hell. A certain way to live, in adherence to your God, is what gives life purpose. These are the collective fears of New England residents in 1692. Their stories have been documented throughout history, tales of wicked women living in dark woods and the God that abandoned them. These are the accounts that guided Robert Eggers' hand when penning his feature film directorial debut. This isn't a conventional witch hunt. This is how The Witch went from script to screen. The ending credits are prefaced with a reminder to the audience. This film was inspired by many folk tales, fairy tales, and written accounts of historical witchcraft, including journals, diaries, and court records. Much of the dialogue comes directly from these period sources. Eggers has stated that he drew heavily from primary sources such as diaries and court documents from the time period in which the film is set, the 17th century in New England. He sought to create an authentic portrayal of Puritan life and beliefs, and the fear and superstition that permeated their society, as well as the internal and external consequences associated with this rejection of belief. Eggers has also cited his interest in folklore and fairy tales as a major influence on the film's story and themes. He was particularly interested in the concept of the witch as a symbol of feminine power and rebellion against patriarchal authority, specifically derivative of the work of Nathaniel Hawthorne and Arthur Miller. Hawthorne's novel, The Scarlet Letter, deals with similar themes of sin, guilt, and repression in Puritan New England, while Miller's play, The Crucible, explores the Salem witch trials which took place in the same time period and region as The Witch. Upon an examination of the script, the reader is addressed earlier on with this information. Eggers writes, "To the reader, this is a tale of witchcraft, told as a simple family of 17th century New England might have believed it to be. All of their folkloric and religious beliefs in this film are true. It was inspired by various folk tales, fairy tales, and recorded accounts of historical witches and possessions from New England and Western Europe before the Salem outbreak in 1692. Much of the dialogue, in fact, comes directly from these sources. In order to effectively depict this world in which ordinary people understood supernatural occurrences to be an expected part of life, it is essential that all aspects of the film to be carried out with utter naturalism. The characters must appear as real farmers, not actors with dirty faces. Even the supernatural elements must be photographed as realistically as possible. Yet, with all this authenticity and realism, it is still a folktale, a dream, a nightmare from the past. The characters of the film are William, his wife Catherine, and their family, Thomason, Caleb, Mercy and Jonas, and the infant. Eggers spent years researching texts and journals from this era and wove these themes into a conventional 3-act film structure.
I researched the grammar and the vocabulary. I had various books about, actually how to do the structure. But then it was mainly going through primary source materials and writing down sentences, phrases that worked, and I sort of cataloged them in different, modes of emotional states or like situations or actions, so on and so forth, and worked like that. I think that early versions of the script were more sort of collage-y, and then it was like taking time to like hone it into more, my words. But there certainly are like things that the children say when they're possessed are things that, children were purported to have said when they were possessed.
Act 1, the setup. The first act of the script establishes the setting and introduces the central characters. The story takes place in 1630s New England, where a Puritan family has been exiled from their community due to their strict religious beliefs. The family settles on a remote farm near a dark forest, and tensions begin to mount as strange and frightening events occur. Act 2, the confrontation. The second act of the script sees the family's situation go from bad to worse. The family's youngest child disappears, and suspicion begins to fall on the oldest daughter, Thomasin, who is accused of being a witch. As the family members turn on each other, the supernatural forces at work become more overt, leading to a dramatic confrontation between the family and the malevolent presence in the woods. Act 3, the resolution. In the final act of the script, the family's fate is sealed. Thomasin makes a deal with the devil and becomes a witch herself, while the rest of her family is killed or possessed by demonic forces. The film ends with Thomasin fleeing into the woods, seemingly embracing her newfound power and freedom. Eggers' script for The Witch is a tightly structured and atmospheric horror story that relies on slow-building tension and psychological terror rather than cheap scares. The dialogue is sparse and archaic, adding to the sense of historical authenticity and otherworldliness. The Witch premiered at the 2015 Sundance Film Festival, where it was widely praised and generated significant buzz. It went on to screen at several other festivals, including the Toronto International Film Festival and the London Film Festival, where it continued to attract positive reviews and attention. The film was independently financed through a combination of private investment and film grants. Eggers and his producing partner, Jay Van Hoy, raised approximately $3.5 million to finance the film's production. According to interviews with Eggers, the financing process was difficult due to the unconventional nature of the project. Eggers had a very clear vision for the film, which was set in 17th century New England and featured dialogue in the language of the time, making it a challenging and risky prospect for potential investors. To help secure financing, Eggers and Van Hoy applied for and received several grants from film organizations, including the Sundance Institute and the CineReach Foundation. These grants helped to cover some of the film's production costs and also lent credibility to the project, which helped to attract additional investors. Ultimately, Eggers and Van Hoy were able to secure enough financing to make the film, and The Witch was produced independently by their production company, Parts and Labor. A24 distributed the film on February 19, 2016. According to Box Office Mojo, the film opened in 2,046 theaters across the United States. This wide release was unusual for an independent horror film, which typically receives much smaller theatrical releases, often in fewer than 1,000 theaters. The film went on to become a critical and commercial success, grossing over $40 million worldwide, and cementing Eggers' reputation as a breakout star in the horror genre. A24 recognized this talent and gave Eggers production offers that began to balloon in budget. Eggers would go on to direct the cult classic The Lighthouse in 2019. In 2022, A24 released Eggers' The Northman, the production studio's highest budget release to date. It is evident that studios and audiences admire Eggers' work, as he is so meticulous in his attention to detail. To conclude this video with an example of this, take a look at this detail in The Witch. Black ergot, also known as Claviceps purpurea, is a fungus that grows on certain types of grasses, particularly rye. It produces a group of toxic compounds known as ergot alkaloids, which can cause a range of symptoms in humans and animals if consumed in sufficient quantities. Historically, outbreaks of ergotism have been linked to the consumption of contaminated rye flour. There is a hypothesis that ergotism, caused by the consumption of contaminated rye, may have played a role in the witch hunts and trials that occurred in colonial America in the 17th century. This theory is based on the fact that some of the symptoms of ergotism, such as hallucinations and convulsions, could have been interpreted as signs of demonic possession or witchcraft by the people of that time. Perhaps this serves as rationale for the family's freefall into insanity, as Eggers included the ergot growth in the production design.